MSW Media.
So yeah, now it's clean up on aisle 45 time. And for a long while yet, it is going to be clean up on aisle 45.
Welcome to episode 213 of Clean Up on Aisle 45. It's Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. I'm Allison Gill.
Hey, AG, Harry Dunn here. We have a lot to cover this week, including an update on our buddy, Special Counsel Hampton Dellinger. There's that name again. He's so awesome. From Judge Amy Berman Jackson and the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And Judge Boasberg in D.C. has put the brakes on the Trump administration trying to erase the January 6 archives. Shout out to them.
Yeah, right? I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Excuse me. I mean, what the heck?
What the F? I would say, wait, this isn't Saturday. This isn't Saturday, AG.
To swear on the public episode. Oops. I'm sure everyone's going to be okay. Plus, we have an update on New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Womp womp. And, of course, a judge continuing to block Elon Musk's access to the Treasury payment system, a story we've been following. And our good friend Norm Eisen has filed a big, umbrella lawsuit challenging the constitutionality and legitimacy of Doge as a government entity. But first, we have some new patrons to thank. And again, patrons, you make the show go. You keep the lights on. You help us cover all the costs of production and all that good stuff. So we can't thank you enough. Terry Kirby, Lavkian, The Fat in the Hat, LJ Hughes, Alicia, Christine Snowden, Crystal Hughes, Todd Rodman, excuse me. That's a great name. Todd Rodman.
Todd Rodman.
It sounds like a Simpsons character. I'm Todd Rodman.
Right. It does. We love you, Todd.
Queen Bee 405. Does that mean you live off the 405 or have to drive on the 405? Because I'm sorry if you do. Mm-hmm. Nicole Stowen and Sea Otter Woman. Thank you so very much. Again, we couldn't do this without you. If you want to become a patron, get these episodes ad-free, get the bonus episode on the weekends where we swear a little bit more. Although, these days, honestly, there's going to be a lot of explicit language that slips into the public episode. Mm-hmm. You can become a patron and help us out and support independent media by going to patreon.com/aisle45pod. That's AISLE 45POD. And we'll give you a shout out. Whatever name you pick, we'll read it.
We will read it.
Yeah. All right. So, big week in illegal firings of federal workers. Yeah. We had 1,000 people cut from the VA, including people who worked the Veterans Crisis Line. We had hundreds from the FAA after 4 deadly crashes since the inauguration. Hundreds from Health and Human Services, CDC. Just all across the board, giant illegal reductions in force, in my opinion. And we're going to go over a few of the cases we're following here on Cleanup, including the case to keep Musk out of the Treasury and the case of the fired special counsel, good old Hampton Dellinger. But I wanted to bring to your attention that overarching case against Doge brought by state democracy defenders and our friend Norm Eisen. And he says in his lawsuit, for the first time, this complaint asserts that Musk's actions are in violation of the United States Constitution's appointment clause. The complaint alleges that Musk and his attempts to stop the payments of congressionally approved money, access sensitive and confidential data across government agencies, fire government employees and contractors, and dismantle entire agencies exceeds his authority. The Constitution's appointment clause only gives those powers to people nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, neither of which applies to Musk. And since Musk's role as the de facto Doge administrator, even though they say that he's not, constitutes performance of significant governmental duties that should only be handled by duly appointed officers of the United States, the plaintiffs are seeking a permanent injunction to prevent Musk and his team from continuing their roles. And Harry, our good friend Marcy Wheeler at Empty Wheel made a really, really good point. Remember how Trump was arguing to Judge Eileen Cannon that she should dismiss his case because Jack Smith can't possibly be considered an officer of the government because he wasn't confirmed by the Senate, and he was only running 2 investigations. And all of a sudden, Elon Musk is totally cool as an officer of the United States.
Yep.
Even though he's got his fat little fingers in every federal agency and our private details and information and the IRS and the Treasury. So she brought up that really good point. Like you yourself said that even Jack Smith, who did 2 things, wasn't an officer.
You know what would be interesting? Like, that is a hell of a point. And you know what? I mean, and Eileen Cannon thought that it was a great point also. file this court in her district. Pray that she gets the case and make her have to answer it but it just goes back to say that, like, I love the point that this is a great lawsuit, in my opinion. Just, obviously any lawsuit against Trump is a great one, right? Like, keep them coming. But this is a very good one because, yes, you're 100% right. These people they were appointed by the president, not confirmed by the Senate. In order to have the access that Musk has, the authority, not just the access, the authority to do what he's doing, you have to be confirmed by the Senate. One would argue, and I think it's reasonable to, you know what? Okay, let it sit him down before the Senate for this new so-called, like we said in the last episode, so-called Doge branch of the government. And I'm rooting for our friend Mr. Eisen here. I think he has a very, very good case.
Well, I think it's Judge Chutkan who has this one. I'll have to check. But she had a hearing. It'll go through district court. It'll go through Court of Appeals, much like the Treasury thing we're about to talk about. To argue the way that they're trying to hide this is to say, well, we took over Digital Services, which is an agency of the United States government. We moved it from its own agency. We renamed it Doge, moved it up under the executive office of the president. And now Elon Musk, in a filing, they say, is not the administrator of the Doge agency. He's actually an advisor to the president in the White House. And when asked multiple times, who is the administrator of Doge, they're like, what do you mean? Yeah. Oh, no, Elon Musk isn't running Doge, but every time you talk to Elon Musk, he's running Doge. So it's going to be really interesting to see where they come down on this. But they're trying to play a shell game with an agency that wasn't stood up by the Congress and it doesn't have funds appropriated to it by the Congress under separation of powers, co-equal branch of government, to say, oh, well, we want to have our cake and eat it too. And it's going to be interesting to see what the judge says about that.
Well, even Elon's own words. Not just, representatives saying it's not Elon running it. Elon gave a speech in the Oval Office while his son told Trump to shut the F up. Like, everybody watched it. Everybody saw you speaking on behalf of, like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Take him to court, make him answer. And that, we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, but this talks about how they want to give the courts less and less power because the courts are not going along with this government overhaul or dismantling that Trump and Elon are hell-bent on doing.
Yeah. And of course, we know it's all just to save a bunch of money to give to his rich friends in tax cuts and then break these agencies and have Elon come in and save the day with his XAI and Tesla and whatever. And to grab all those NASA contracts up for himself with SpaceX and maybe give a few to Bezos, who kissed the ring. That's the ultimate goal. And of course, they're trying to raise the debt ceiling. But they're running into a roadblock with that, by the way. I hope so.
There are a lot of Republicans that are all on board for the Trump train, but the buck stops with spending money, and raising the debt ceiling is a lot of these, like that Freedom Caucus. A lot of those members are highly against that, and Chip Roy's one of them. They all do get in line eventually, but let's see what happens with this, because that's a lot of their red line is fiscal spending and not raising money. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I've always said it's going to come down to whether Republicans in Congress are willing to stand up to Trump and be primaried, or to screw over their constituents and be primaried. So it'll be interesting to see.
One or the other. Either way, it's coming.
They are answerable to the voters, and it depends on how badly Trump can make their lives miserable by getting their voters to vote against him, even though it's not in their own best interest. So what's up with the Treasury case? Yeah,
that's interesting. And, an update about that, the Musk has had access to the Treasury. ABC reports that a federal judge in Manhattan on Friday said she will continue to block individuals associated with Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency from accessing sensitive Treasury Department records and payment systems, while she considers whether to issue a preliminary injunction. During a hearing Friday in the lawsuit brought by the attorneys generals of 19 states, U.S. District Judge Jeanette Vargas did not rule on whether to issue an injunction further blocking Doja's access, but opted to extend her temporary restraining order from last week. She suggested her decision would come down over the next few days, but not on Friday night.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for that. Because as of this recording, we don't have that update, but there still may be a ruling on an injunction by the time you hear this podcast. So it's still currently a temporary restraining order. But if the judge issues an injunction, then the Trump administration can appeal, and I expect they will. And the Trump administration is actually appealing things that haven't been ruled injunctions that are still temporary restraining orders. They've got one all the way up to the Supreme Court right now. But most people don't like that. And by the way, that's the Dellinger case, and we'll get to that shortly.
Yeah.
They went to the DC Circuit. DC Circuit's like, we don't have any jurisdiction. This is still a restraining order. You got to wait until the district court files a injunction, right? And so then the lawyers go up to the Supreme Court. We want it now. Tell us now. It's a rule for the ages. It'll be.
It's kind of like these lawyers are still learning how to be lawyers. Like this is this is crazy. With and we laugh about this stuff, but it's so sickening. When I got the opportunity to sit in the court for the FBI agents to protect their identity, just listening to the lawyers for the government, it sounded so preschool. I mean, listen, anybody that passes the bar, obviously you got a half a brain on you, but maybe not much common sense. But it was really bad listening to some of these lawyers make some of these arguments. And I'm just sitting in there next to some, probably some 20-year-old law clerks that are in there, and we're just looking at each other, shaking our heads. Yeah, exactly. Like, did they really just say that? I could rule on this case. I mean, no, I'm not suggesting. Well, yeah, maybe I am. I don't know. But also one thing that does stand out right now, Judge Vargas, a lot of times these rulings, don't take this long. Now, this is not long per se, but she's taking her time, and I think she's going to make a very calculated decision because she knows that this decision is going to be appealed and scrutinized for years and decades to come. So,
yeah, and so when you issue a temporary restraining order, you can issue them for a maximum of 14 days, and if you need to extend that restraining order, you do in 14-day chunks until you have enough briefing and information to make a ruling on an actual injunction. That's the next step, because like I said, the injunction can be appealed, and usually the temporary restraining order can't. It's like an emergency. Hang on until we figure out what's going on here, and then we'll see about hearing briefings and argument on a more permanent injunction on what you're trying to do here. So that's the way it goes. But what I'm finding is, and I've heard this from a lot of people who attended the 50-51 rallies and the protests that happened on President's Day or Not a King's Day, and most people just don't like the idea of Elon Musk being all up in our personal business.
Yeah.
We reported on the Beans that a 25-year-old Doge Nick Fuentes fan is about to get access to every tax filing at the IRS for every American nonprofit and business in America. And that just skeeves people out.
I'm flabbergasted. Like, people, this is the hypocrisy, obviously, that, Republicans talk about, small government, get out of our business, blah, blah, blah. That's literally what they run on. Small government, the government shouldn't be doing anything, controlling anything. But now you are granting the government, Elon Musk, authority to do anything with anybody's personal information, whether it comes to finances. And I mean, who knows what's next? I mean, we got RFK now reading HHS, or, is HIPAA going to continue to be a thing?
Right.
Where are they going to stop? Where are they going to stop? Damn. I just thought of that HIPAA thing on the fly. That's actually scary. Like, sheesh, let's pray to God that doesn't never happen. But, this is the world that they want, and it's sad.
Right. And then they have access to VA records. Then they have my entire health record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. Because that's right. You're through the VA, and that's automatic. That's just not like somebody just goes to Kaiser Permanente or something like that. Or that's, man, it's scary to think about what they're doing right now. It's scary to think about it. So I am glad to see that even people that are Republicans or conservatives or MAGA people are not okay with this. That gives an opportunity, I think, and, getting really ahead of myself and not trying to get too off track, that gives an opportunity for Democrats in 2026 to get some adults back in the playing field.
Agreed. And this Treasury case, by the way, is the one being led by Tish James and a bunch of other attorneys general, who, by the way, was just recently sued by the Trump Department of Justice. Pam Bondi got on and said, "We've filed charges against Tish James and Kathy Hochul," but she apparently, even though she's the attorney general, doesn't know the difference between suing and filing criminal charges.
Unbelievable.
And they had their clearances revoked by Donald Trump, Kathy Hochul and Tish James. And Trump's alleging that the state of New York is impeding federal efforts to deport undocumented immigrants. And that was the same day that Mayor Eric Adams let ICE into Rikers, seemingly part of his quid pro quo with the Trump Department of Justice in exchange for having his charges dropped.
Yeah.
And in that case, we covered all of the resignations over on the Unjustified podcast, but Judge Dale Ho, who is the judge presiding over that case, has the Eric Adams case, that is, has ordered a hearing on this today at 2 p.m. Eastern, saying, hey, this whole so-called consent that you say that Eric Adams signed to have these charges dismissed without prejudice, you're going to have to give me a copy of that because you didn't include that. And then you're going to have to explain inter alia, which means among other things, why you think these charges should be dismissed. So this isn't going to be easy for the DOJ.
I'm really glad that the Judge Ho is doing that instead of just saying, okay, yeah, we accept it. Oh, both parties have come to an agreement. Mm-hmm. No, this is some sketchy-ish going on right now.
Yeah, it's
very corrupt. And you even got more and more people that have resigned in the office, in the governor's office, the mayor's office, that don't want to even be associated with him. So I'm really glad that Judge Ho is taking these steps to find for transparency, at the very least for transparency, and not just letting it slide.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about those resignations from the mayor's office. Because just this morning, actually, as we record this, Governor Kathy Hochul is meeting with leaders in the mayor's office to decide whether or not to actually remove Eric Adams from his job as mayor, which would kick off a special election. There is a general election and a primary this year as well. So if there is a special election, whoever won that would only be the mayor until the end of this year. And then whoever wins the general election for the 2025 mayoral race will take over the job. If it's a different person, if it's the same person, they'll just continue.
Yeah, continue service. Working. We're going to talk about that, but that's a hell of a dynamic to talk about special election and then, a regular election right afterwards. Interesting.
Yeah. And former Mayor Cuomo was he the governor or the mayor? He's
the governor.
He's actually way ahead in the polls for that position. So, but I want to talk more about these other City Hall people resigning. This is pretty intense, but we have to take a quick break. We'll go over it right after that. Stick around. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, it's AG. I've always loved the idea of cooking fresh, delicious meals at home, but between juggling work and, all my friends and everything in between and my crazy schedule, it felt like an impossible dream. I would stare at the recipes, I'd make endless grocery lists, and I'd still end up ordering takeout more often than I'd like to admit. And then I discovered Marley Spoon. And suddenly everything clicked. Now I'm cooking meals I'm proud of without the stress or guesswork. It's not just about eating better, it's about enjoying the process, one recipe at a time. The episode is brought to you by Marley Spoon today, and I'm genuinely excited to share how it's helping me eat well without the stress. With the code CLEANUP, all one word, you can get up to 27 free meals. It's an incredible deal. And what I love most is their 100+ weekly recipes. From comforting dishes like Big Batch Beef Stroganoff, which I love, to lighter options like salmon and creamy mustard dill sauce, there's truly something for everyone. For those nights when time is tight, Marley Spoon just launched their new 15-minute express recipes with 3 quick options each week. So if you've got a few extra minutes, their 20-minute meals are also fantastic. And let's not forget Martha's Best recipes. That's right. Each week they feature at least 2 of Martha Stewart's incredible dishes, which taste even better than you'd imagine. It's the perfect way to enjoy delicious, stress-free cooking. And the best part, I'm cooking at home more. I'm stressing less about meals. I'm eating better than I have in years. It's like having a personal chef handle the planning and prepping. All I got to do is enjoy the fun part, creating the delicious meal without the hassle. And there's something incredibly satisfying about building a routine of cooking at home, taking that time. It's meditative. And you know every meal is going to turn out delicious. It's not just about eating well. It's about the joy of creating something you love time after time. So this new year, fast track your way to eating well with Marley Spoon. Head to marleyspoon.com/offer/cleanup. And use the code cleanup for 27 free meals. That's right, up to 27 free meals with Marley Spoon. Just go to marleyspoon.com/offer/cleanup with promo code cleanup. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back, y'all. Right before the break, we were just talking about corrupt Mayor Eric Adams' deal with Trump's DOJ in exchange for carrying out Trump's immigration policies. Giving him access to visit Rikers and et cetera. Adams will have a motion filed to drop the charges against him.
Yeah, and the Trump DOJ is asking the court to drop the charges without prejudice, like we talked about, so they can bring them again if Adams doesn't do what he's told by the Trump administration. Just a corrupt deal all around.
All the way around. We're keeping this around you, so if you don't do what we say, charges are right back on. And the Times is reporting now that 4 top New York City's officials said that they will resign after the Justice Department moved to dismiss Eric Adams' corruption case in an apparent exchange for his help with Donald Trump's deportation agenda.
Yeah, and the 4 officials, Maria Torres Springer, the first deputy mayor, and Mira Joshi, Ann Williams-Esom, and Chauncey Parker, all also deputy mayors. They oversee much of New York City government, and their departure is poised to blow a devastating hole in the already wounded administration of Eric Adams.
Talk about standing on principle, though. I mean, wow, like good for them. Like principles, integrity, all matter. But increasingly, the deputy mayors felt that they were not merely working for an indicted mayor, but for someone whose personal interests risked outweighing the interests of New Yorkers. That's very good for them.
Right. And it also helps leverage the governor, Kathy Hochul, to remove him. Like, you want us to stay? He goes. You want us to go? If you want him to stay, we go. And that's important, I think. An important consideration. The departing deputy mayors met with Mr. Adams on Friday and told him they had grave concerns about his predicament as a leader. Predicament. At that meeting, they told him they were planning to resign, actually. And the meeting was first reported by Politico. And then on Sunday evening, the 4 deputy mayors met with him again on Zoom as he tried to persuade them to postpone the announcement of their resignations. The exact timing of their departures has yet to be determined. And the Sunday Zoom was first reported by WNBC.
They wrote in an email to their colleagues, due to the extraordinary events of the last few weeks and to stay faithful to the oaths we swore to New Yorkers and our families, we have come to the difficult decision to step down from our roles. While our time in the administration will come to a close, our support for the incredible public servants across the administration with whom we stood shoulder to shoulder and our championing of this great city and all it stands for will never cease. Powerful statement.
Great letter. The departure of the 4th official, Mr. Parker, is particularly notable because as the deputy mayor for public safety, he has been deeply involved in the issues around the city's role in the president's deportation plans. So the planned exit of the 4 key officials means half of New York City's 8 deputy mayors are leaving City Hall. And I learned something today. That New York has 8 deputy mayors.
I was just about to, I literally just, that's a lot. Well,
is it a
lot? I would assume
city.
So. Yeah.
It remains unclear who will replace them and if this will precipitate further departures from the commissioners who report to them. I know one of the city council people was like, I'm going to quit if you don't get rid of Adams. The official's expected departure would cap 5 months of instability in the administration that at times has veered toward chaos. That's a nice way to put it, New York Times.
Yeah.
First, the mayor was indicted on federal bribery and fraud charges. Then a deluge of other unrelated federal corruption investigations swept through City Hall.
Yeah, those inquiries led to resignations of half a dozen of his most senior aides who had their phones seized by federal authorities. Two successive police commissioners within 3 months of one another, his prior first deputy mayor and deputy mayor for public safety, his school's chancellor, and a senior advisor who was one of his closest confidants. Man.
Yeah. And then in December, Eric Adams' top advisor, Ingrid Lewis Martin, resigned shortly before the Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg obtained an indictment charging her and her son with bribery and other crimes. All of this is bringing pressure to the door of Governor Kathy Hochul to remove Adams from office, which she should absolutely do, by the way. In a February 13th interview on MSNBC, Hochul didn't outright refuse to consider ousting Adams, adding that she was weighing her options carefully. And if Adams resigns or is removed from office, the public advocate, Jumaine Williams, would become acting mayor of the city of New York. Williams would then be required to call a special election within 80 days to elect a new mayor to serve the remainder of Adams' term, which expires the end of this year. That scenario, I don't think would change the time. No, it absolutely, actually, I just confirmed, will not change the timeline of the November mayoral election, in which voters will decide who'll be New York City's mayor for the next 4 years. And as I said, Cuomo is the front runner by a mile, the former governor, according to recent polling. So this is just corrupt as hell, Harry. When Andy and I talked about this and the resignation of all those people in the Southern District of New York over this, Andy brought up a really good point that regardless of Eric Adams's thinking, it can only be corrupt. Because in one scenario, Eric Adams is saying, hey, I think your immigration policies, Trump, are bullshit and illegal, but I'll do them for you if you give me leniency. That's corrupt. The other scenario is, I really like your policies and I'm going to do them, but only if you do this. So he's either asking for leniency in order to do his job or asking for leniency to go against something he thinks is illegal. And both of those scenarios are corrupt AF.
And you're right, though. Those are the only two plausible ways. Trump wants you to do it and you don't want to, or you actually want to and you're looking for something in return from it. It's extremely corrupt. But one of the things that comes to my mind, what is Kathy Hochul waiting on? Like, what is she hasn't made her mind up yet. Like, I'm sure most of the people in New York, I'm sure there's polling that are totally against this, they are against Eric Adams. They're against what's happening. His popularity was already sinking as it was. And I think that this just makes it even like the nail in the coffin, the proverbial nail in the coffin. But what is she waiting on? Like, she's weighing her options. The options are you remove him or you don't. She's weighing how it's going to affect her political career. That's what she's weighing. And, maybe I'm being too hard on her. I don't know. But there's a process in place for putting another acting mayor until the election, a special election, 80 days. Now, maybe the only thing she's considering is, damn, we're going to have an election on December 31st. He's out of here anyway.
No, in November, right.
Yeah, in November. In November, but his term expires December 31st. So maybe is that the only thing she's weighing? I don't know.
Or it could be because if she waits until like toward the end of March, then she doesn't need a special election. She doesn't have to spend the money on a special election and put a temporary person in there. They can just use the regular primary election and mayoral general election in November. But I still haven't figured out why. I mean, other than to just save money, like why some folks are saying because it would be open primary and Republicans can vote in it for a special election. But like, even if you get the Hamburglar in there until the end of the year, like at least the 3 other deputy mayors might stay there. But like, I guess I just don't understand the danger of having a special election. And maybe somebody can write in and explain that to me, because I don't think New Yorkers would elect the Hamburglar.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. Like I said, Cuomo is blowing everybody out of the water in the polls. So it would probably be Cuomo in a special election and the general, or Cuomo in the general. And you stick with Eric Adams for the next however many months, and a really messed up thing where he's going against New York's law about immigration policies to help Donald Trump because he's got that potential indictment hanging over his head if he doesn't do what they say. That just seems like not the way to go.
Yeah, I'm conflicted in it. And I obviously Eric Adams is who we all think that he is. He's a corrupt individual. And I mean, like I said, we saw he started going further to MAGA, even before this was introduced. But I really want to see what Kathy Hochul does. And I'm conflicted with why it's taking so long. And I think she needs to be transparent with the New Yorkers, and tell them what is her thought process here. Besides, I'm weighing all my options. Either you remove them or you don't. Those are your two options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just a real quick breaking news. I was looking to see if there was any outcome from that Kathy Hochul meeting, but other breaking news, Judge Chutkan has denied the state attorney's general request for a restraining order against Musk and Doge, saying the evidence of immediate and irreparable harm falls short, even if Doge has caused uncertainty and alarm. But she suggests she's seriously considering whether Musk's role altogether is a constitutional violation. She says plaintiffs legitimately call into question what appears to be the unchecked authority of an unelected individual and an entity that was not created by Congress and over which it has no oversight. In these circumstances, it must be indisputable that this court acts within the bounds of its authority. So accordingly, it can't issue a temporary restraining order, especially one as wide-ranging as the plaintiff's request, without clear evidence of imminent irreparable harm to these plaintiffs. The current record doesn't meet that standard. So we will continue to talk about that on the bonus this weekend. And of course, we'll cover it in full and anything else that comes out of it on next week's episode. All right.
That's an interesting ruling, though. Just real quick. That's an interesting ruling. I view Judge Chutkan as a very smart, very calculated person. And just listening to what you were just reading there, she goes to suggest what we were talking about, our friend Norm Eisen, the constitutionality of Doge. So definitely we're going to be covering that. Stay tuned. That's going to be a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, and what she's basically saying is there hasn't been any harm yet. You're kind of speculating on the harm. It would be like me going to get a restraining order against my ex without him having raised a hand to me, but I can tell he's about to. The judge would be like, I can't issue a temporary restraining order till he does. That sucks, but
it's the way the rules are. Yeah,
it's the law.
Yeah.
So we will continue to keep an eye on that. But Harry, I really wanted to talk to you about this next story because it's about erasing the history and whitewashing the history of what happened on January 6th. And the judge's order to stop that from happening. Yeah. But we have to take a quick break. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. This next story comes from Chris Perez at Law and Crime. A federal judge has demanded that the Trump administration stop removing video court records related to the January 6th attack on the Capitol from government websites, after attorneys for a coalition of news organizations noticed that online databases were being scrubbed this week. The Press Coalition, which includes ABC, the Associated Press, CBS, New York Times, and the Washington Post, filed a court document in the District of Columbia on Tuesday accusing the Trump administration of purging video and records in the wake of his executive order pardoning and dismissing charges for all January 6th rioters. On Wednesday, U.S. District Court Judge James Boasberg slammed the brakes on Trump's alleged video purge, saying government officials must identify any other videos that have been removed and provide reasons as to why they're being plucked from U.S. databases. Boasberg, a Barack Obama appointee, ordered the government to identify all videos and records removed from USA File Exchange, also known as USAFX, and offer up explanations, and they have to do it by February 26th.
Thanks, Obama. The Press Coalition says over the past 4 years, this court and the other district judges in this district have repeatedly ordered the government to make such riot-related records publicly accessible through an electronic Dropbox on the government's portal. Within the past week, however, certain video exhibits submitted in connection with the sentencing of at least one Capitol riot defendant has disappeared from that Dropbox.
Weird. Government officials were asked via email on February 10th to restore the videos and records as expeditiously as possible. And quote, as of this filing, however, the government has not provided any further response, and the Simon video exhibits, that Simon is the defendant, remain missing from USAFX. The video exhibits are judicial records subject to the public rights of access under the First Amendment and common law, and judges have determined case by case that the public is entitled to access each of the video exhibits. This is, again, from the motion, which goes on to say, that right of access does not dissipate merely because all the capital case defendants have been pardoned. To the contrary, the public interest in ensuring that the video exhibits remain available in the future is all the greater, given that these videos are immutable and represent the truth, no matter how the events of January 6th are described by those charged or their allies.
Powerful last sentence right there that you just read. No matter how the events of January 6th are described by those charged or their allies. Very powerful sentence right there. The Trump administration has not responded to Boasberg's request. As of Wednesday afternoon, according to court records, the press coalition's fight to protect January 6 databases come as the Trump administration continues to be accused of deploying efforts to rewrite history when it comes to the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack.
Yeah, so true. Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, CREW, a federal watchdog, penned an open letter last month to the Inspector General of the Department of Justice and the Archivist of the United States, urging them to take action and investigate the DOJ removal of the January 6 database, detailing criminal charges and convictions, which they call a likely violation of federal law. They wrote, the Department of Justice's removal of this vital information about its prosecutions arising from January 6th, the attack on the Capitol, is consistent with President Trump's ongoing efforts to rewrite or erase the insurrection. We request that you promptly investigate this matter and take appropriate corrective action if necessary. And that letter, like I said, went to the Archivist and the Inspector General for the Department of Justice. And the Inspector General for the Department of Justice is still Michael Horowitz. It's still the same. He's one of the two that didn't get fired
Not yet.
by Donald Trump. Yeah, yet. Exactly. So this is just one prong in a series of events that show that the Trump administration is trying to erase what happened on January 6th. And I know that you've been in the crossfire of this, arguing and fighting back and pushing back on that whitewashing of history.
Yeah, it's so important, though, that we make sure that it doesn't get rewritten, whitewashed, erased. And, you know, me and, you know, a lot of the other officers that these listeners have gone to know and love have been doing the same thing. I mean, it's not okay for, you know, Donald Trump gets all his charges dropped. All right. The Supreme Court says he has immunity. He pardons everybody who had anything to do with it. Now they're deleting the tapes. They are literally trying to erase what happened that day. And we cannot let that happen. And I will not let that happen. You know, it was the most documented crime in American history. Everybody has it DVR'd somewhere. But like right now, and I'm glad that this group of watchdogs, this is our media, these are our journalists doing their independent investigations, they probably were looking for the footage to follow, hey, where are they now? This kind of story, these people that keep getting rearrested or keep having incidents and run-ins with police, or, you know, there's been I think we're up to like 12 or 13 people have been rearrested, one killed, two are back in jail serving lengthy sentences. We're not going to let this be whitewashed or erased, and we cannot let it happen.
Yeah. And, you know, whenever I hear about these kinds of efforts to erase history, I always think of the quote from George Orwell's 1984, you know, when he said, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. And that is exactly what's happening here. And they're doing their best to help us reject the evidence of our eyes and our ears by removing the evidence that we can see and hear from the public record. And it won't stand. And I'm glad that this judge is putting the brakes on it. Judge Boasberg's great. He's chief judge over at the D.C. District Court. It was Judge Beryl Howe. They served terms, and now he is the judge sitting atop that district. So I'm glad he has this case. And like you said, thanks, Obama.
Thanks, Obama. But like you said, Boasberg and Obama appointees. So Obama, the gift that keeps on giving. Thanks, my friend.
Yes. And thanks to Biden for appointing a record number of judges. It's really going to make a difference.
It already has been.
It has been over the next 4 years. All right. We got to talk about our boy, Hampton Dellinger.
Oh, yeah.
With the cool name, the hero over there at Office of Special Counsel. I don't know him personally. Could be a jerk. I don't know. But
yes. The name is cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know him from a can of paint, but the name is cool.
But I appreciate his fighting back. I really do. And we're going to talk about that after this quick break. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Our last story today is a follow-up on Hampton Dellinger, special counsel that Trump fired from the Office of Special Counsel, which is totally different from like Jack Smith and Robert Hur. Those are different. Those are appointed special counsel to the DOJ. This is the Office of Special Counsel. It exists there, and it has a lot of different things that they do. And we talked about that on a previous episode. But this is a special counsel Trump fired, and because he hates independent watchdogs. And the Office of Special Counsel also investigates whistleblower complaints and wrongful termination of government workers. So, of course, he wants him gone. And last week, Dellinger sued. We talked about that. And the Judge Amy Berman Jackson, reinstated him temporarily in a minute order. And that was February 10th, the same day Dellinger filed his lawsuit. And then on February 12th, Judge Amy Berman Jackson issued a 27-page order extending her temporary restraining order. Remember how I said you can only get him for 14 days? You got to extend that temporary restraining order while you consider the facts to see if you're going to file a more permanent injunction. That's where we are.
That's where we are, the 27-page order. The ruling says, it is hereby ordered that from the date of entry of this order until the court rules on the entry of a preliminary injunction, plaintiff Hampton Dellinger shall continue to serve as the special counsel of the Office of Special Counsel, the position he occupied at 7:22 p.m. on Friday, February 7, 2025, when he received the email from the assistant to the president. Defendants may not deny him access or resources of materials of the office or recognize the authority of any other person as special counsel.
Yep. She then goes on to say the court will hold a hearing on the plaintiff's request for an injunction, that more permanent injunction, pending resolution of the case on the merits, i.e. an appealable preliminary injunction, on February 26th at 10 a.m. The parties are directed to confer and inform the court by February 14th of their position, or positions if they don't agree, on whether, given the legal nature of the dispute, the court should consolidate consideration of the request for a preliminary injunction with consideration of the merits pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 65A2, and they must submit a proposed schedule for any additional submissions that are warranted. So what she's asking for here is, first of all, let me know if you want me to do the preliminary injunction and the merits at the same time, or if you want me to issue a preliminary injunction or decide on the preliminary injunction and then do the merits later. And in both cases, if you're in agreement, give me a briefing schedule. So the parties may propose that the court deem the motion in support of the temporary restraining order to be a memorandum in support of a motion for preliminary injunction, with the opposition and reply similarly designated, and or existing pleadings can be deemed to be motions and oppositions or cross motions under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 56. And what she's saying there is, the rules say that you can just use the filings you've already submitted for the restraining order as the filings for the injunction, or you can file new ones and let me know when you want to file them by. The court notes that an order of consolidation does not require the consent of the parties. So she says, I can actually decide that on my own.
I got the final say on this. I got the say on this. I don't need y'all. That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, she's kind of a badass. So good job, Hampton Dellinger. I love it. And again, the difference between a temporary restraining order and an injunction, we've talked about that. The original minute order reinstated Dellinger through February 13th. And this is a fuller order, and it extends the temporary restraining order until they have the hearing and she decides. If it goes past another 14 days, she'll probably have to issue another extension of the temporary restraining order while she decides. Because if they want her to decide on a preliminary injunction and the merits in one go, that would take a longer time, right? So she would have to continue extending that restraining order than if they just wanted her to decide on a preliminary injunction and then do the merits of the case. So we'll see what they say. I don't have any input yet from that case, but we'll talk about it next week, obviously.
Well, yeah, but talking about the restraining order, Trump appealed Judge Jackson's restraining order to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, who said in a 2-1 decision on procedural grounds that the appeals court isn't going to disturb a restraining order that ends in a couple of weeks, and that only temporary injunctions and not restraining orders are appealable. Isn't that interesting? How it was, that decision was 2-1? Like somebody, sided with the Trump side there on something that wasn't appealable.
It was Trump appointee Judge Katsas, as a matter of fact. Katsas, who served as the top attorney in the White House counsel's office during Trump's first term, said that the implications of Jackson's directive for the powers of the presidency were so momentous that the appeals court should act immediately. So basically what he's saying here is like, hey, whoa, the president is super powerful and Dellinger is the head of an agency, right? This isn't just a lower level person like a person on the Merit Service Protection Board or a person at the NLRB or somebody lower down. This is a head of an agency and they serve at the pleasure of the president. Even though there was a law passed in 2022 saying that you can only fire this particular guy, special counsel, for cause. And so basically what Katsas and what the Trump attorneys are saying is that hasn't been litigated yet. We don't think it's constitutional under our, presidents are kings theory. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do. But a lot of folks are saying that since now this has been appealed up to the Supreme Court as well, because the DC Circuit said 2-1 nah. A lot of people are like, well, this is going to determine whether or not the 18 inspectors general can be fired or whether Kathy Harris from the Merit Service Protection Board can be fired. This is going to be a bellwether case for all these other for-cause firings that require a cause because they're watchdogs, an inspectors general or their MS, Merit Service Protection Board or whatever. This case, how they decide on this case is going to tell us what happens in these other cases. But Steve Vladeck, our good friend, is warning against that, saying, no, this is very different because Hampton Dellinger is the head of this agency. So don't take what they do here as what they will do in the rest of these cases. And so that was just a warning that he put out there that I wanted to share.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think anybody should look at the Supreme Court and, hey, they did it this way for this one. It's going to be blanket for every. No, not this Supreme Court. No, they don't have a lot of rhyme or reason why they do anything. But I do agree that it is going to set the groundwork for a lot of their arguments, and they will be telling in this whatever case they decide to take first, just their initial oral arguments. Listening to the line of questions is going to give us a good indication of which direction they are leaning in this going forward.
But it could be very narrow because this guy is just an agency head. They might say, the president can fire whoever he wants. The 2022 law that was passed that says you can only fire special counsel for cause is unconstitutional because of Article 2 powers of the presidency, that every agency head serves at the pleasure of the president, et cetera, et cetera. And that wouldn't preclude the inspectors general or the Merit Service Protection Board people from still having a chance. So, and I think that's what Steve Vladeck was saying. Like, don't take, if the Supreme Court comes back and says the president is the king and he can't, he gets to fire whoever he wants. You can't say this and blah, blah, blah. Then that doesn't necessarily mean they'll say the same thing for the rest of the folks. But it also depends on what the ruling is. So we'll see. We'll be following this one really closely. Because like you said, some folks are saying this ruling could have implications for other lawsuits brought by officials removed by Trump in key positions, including the inspectors general, the Gwynne Wilcox, who was the National Labor Relations Board person, Kathy Harris, the Merit Systems Protection Board person, who, by the way, her job was just reinstated by a judge.
Yes, I did see that. That is great to hear.
And Susan Grunman, member of the Federal Labor Relations Authority. But like I said, Vladeck says no matter how this court rules, we shouldn't view the result as a foreshadowing of everything, or frankly, almost anything else that's coming, because this isn't just about whether the court thinks presidents can't be subject to laws restricting the ability to fire people. It's also about whether Trump can appeal the temporary restraining order, right? They might
Like,
sorry,
yeah.
this is just a restraining order. It's not appealable. Peace out. And then it might continue through the normal course.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like I said, that's the argument that the Trump appointee in that 2-1 ruling is making. He's saying that he's literally looking to write new rules and laws just because of the Trump is the king kind of thing. And that's not even the argument that the DOJ even requested to be looked at right now. So.
Right, or the attorneys for the plaintiffs who are
that's
like,
that's what I meant. Yes.
You just can't appeal to a temporary restraining order. But even so, this is a law and it needs to be followed. But we know that this particular Supreme Court loves making new rules for the ages, just like they granted Trump immunity last year. So based on that, if I was going to make a prediction, if I was going to put my beans on something, I think that the Supreme Court might actually say, yeah, I know that restraining orders aren't appealable, but this is important because it interferes with Donald Trump's or the president's Article 2 executive authority to fire agency heads. And so we're going to hear it and we'll go from there. And then they'll decide that Trump can actually fire this guy. I think they'll do that. Or they could say, nope, you got to wait until there's an injunction and then you can appeal it. And the injunction could come pretty soon anyway. So they might be like, dude, we're not going to, jump in and on a restraining order. But they tend to really seem to want to take cases where they get to make brand new rules or overturn laws that they disagree with that interfere with their unitary executive president's all-powerful BS.
Yeah, that's literally what they've been doing since, this court, the way that it stands now, has been operating. And a lot of people have felt the brunt of it.
Do they realize that by helping Trump out, that they could be taking away their own supremeness by him refusing to follow orders from the court?
I think they're too dumb to realize that. Just like I said at the beginning of the show, a lot of people pass the bar and a lot of people are brain smart, but they lack all the common sense in the world. Ugh.
Yeah. And, or maybe they do know that and they don't care.
They don't care.
And they want the president to be a king and they want to subjugate themselves before it. And then they'll have to change their name to the mediocre court instead of the Supreme Court.
Not I, my dear lady.
Yeah, right. But I mean, that's what Netanyahu tried to do when the protests of hundreds of thousands of people broke out. He tried to take power away from the judiciary so that he could have it for himself. And so I wouldn't be surprised either way.
And I bet you Trump asked him, hey, tell me how you did that. Or what's the strategy there? Let's talk about that because I want to do the same thing here.
Yeah, well, you saw Elon Musk stand up and say, well, if any judge can just tell the president what to do, we're not living in like he read that part of the Constitution or whatever about checks and balances and co-equal branches of government. They clearly do not think that the judiciary and the Congress are a co-equal branch of government to the president. And the Supreme Court, it ain't helping us out by granting the president immunity and putting him above the law, which, I could go on.
Yeah, it's time for the court to define them that, listen, whether they agree with Trump's policies or not, hey, you're going to listen to what we say. That's our authority, period. And I don't think they have the fortitude to lay that type of smackdown does. I know Justice Berman Jackson, Ketanji Brown Jackson absolutely does. And even Sotomayor, I love it. But, in
fear of democracy,
I dissent. Here we are.
Do you have that shirt? Do you have a shirt that says that?
No, you know what? As soon as you just said that, I was like, I need that on a shirt. Yeah, so I think I'm going to find me one that says that. Yep.
Awesome. All right, everybody, that's the show. And we're going to keep you posted on all of this. I'm going to check one more time to see if Governor Hochul has removed Eric Adams yet. No, I don't see it. Judge Cannon won't immediately lift her order blocking release of the classified documents. Okay, yeah, figured. And then more about the Judge Chutkin Doge ruling, but nothing on Hochul yet. So we will definitely keep an eye on that for you.
It's coming.
Because I imagine she's going to have to be making a decision sooner rather than later because of all the pressure that's at her front door right now,
Yeah, completely agree. And I would say I expect it soon, but I mean, who the hell knows? I mean, are we in the age of just drag your feet?
Yeah, and she's not going to come out and say, "Well, I want to wait until March 26th because it's better for me politically." Like she's not going to she's not going to come out
exactly.
And say,
she won't say that
what she means, which is dumb because we're not 9. Like lay it out like
exactly.
It is. Like
tell us.
Okay.
Tell us.
Well, if it's better for Democrats and it's better for the city, explain how. And give us your explanation instead of I'm considering it and will announce my decision soon. Soon in government terms can mean 6 months. So anyway, I think she should remove him. I don't think there should be any question about it personally.
At all.
He can't be there. He's bad for New York. He's corrupt AF. He's making corrupt deals to violate New York law and harm New Yorkers. And that can't stand. And especially with a quid pro quo with the DOJ regime, Trump's regime, you can't, that's just so bad. And so corrupt. And he was going to get a superseding indictment for a conspiracy to obstruct justice because he told all of his pals to destroy evidence and lie to the FBI. That's serious corruption. And it cannot stand. That carries a 20-year max sentence in prison, obstruction of justice.
Come on, Kathy. Come on, Governor Hochul. I hope you're listening.
Governor Hochul, if you're listening.
I'm about to say you're about to transform right there.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. Thanks to our new patrons that we gave a shout out to. Again, if you want to join us, join our community. It's patreon.com/aisle45pod. We really, really thank you from the bottom of our hearts for listening and in whatever way you're able to. That's the truth. And I know I'm pretty sure I speak for Harry when I say that.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Oh, and for everybody just wondering, Rudy Giuliani still sucks. So we didn't mention him. I just had to bring it. Rudy
Bannon
sucks. All right?
Still sucks, even though he's not going to trial.
He sucks and he smells bad. So
yeah, and we didn't get an answer. We still don't have an answer from Alvin Bragg about why he let him walk without prison. Mm-hmm. But I will keep trying to push for that answer, and I know a lot of journalists are too. All right, everybody, patrons, we'll see you on the weekend for the bonus and
happy hour
of the Beans and Cleanup on Aisle 45 this Friday, February 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific. We have a happy hour on deck, and you can come and ask us questions. Harry and I will both be there.
Bring your favorite cock or mocktail. See what I did there?
Yeah,
bring your favorite cock or mocktail. Yes, I can't wait to be joining y'all. Can't wait. I love this. I love the happy hour. And it's not too late. Is it, AG? It's not too late for them to join? Yep.
Not too late to sign up and get an invite to that happy hour if you want to. And we'll see you then. And of course, for everybody else, we'll see you next week. I've been Allison Gill.
Harry Dunn. Thanks, y'all.
Cleanup on Aisle 45 is written, researched, and produced by Allison Gill with editing by Molly Hockey. Our art and logo design are by Joelle Reeder and Moxie Design Studios, and our music is composed and performed by Adam Orr. Cleanup on Aisle 45 is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, visit mswmedia.com. MSW Media.